Hello, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is AB, and on my YouTube channel we're going to be getting into some pretty deep stuff, mostly going to be about like anything true crime, so serial killers, regular killers, disappearances, kidnappings, just anything true crime-ish. And I just want to note that I'm in no way, shape, or form trying to worship or idolize these like killers. The people that are doing this crime, I'm not trying to idolize them in any way. I'm simply trying to bring to light what they want to keep hidden under the bed, in the closet, in the dark, right? I'm pulling those monsters out. And our topic today is kind of interesting because it was a 15-year-old girl. Yeah, so let's get right into that. So our topic today is actually a little girl named Alyssa Bustamante, and she was born on January 28th, 1924 in California. Her mother and father were actually heavy substance and alcohol abusers, and her father was in and out of prison for like assault and things like that and drug possession. She had two other siblings. She had one sister named Emma and two twin brothers. I'm not sure what their names are. But the grandparents of Alyssa and her siblings actually had tried to stay close to the mother and the kids to just keep an eye on them and make sure everything's good. And they said frequently they would go up and check on them, and the place would be like a total dump. Like the outside of the trailer home would be littered with beer bottles. The inside of the home was just disgusting. The dishes were piled up in the sink. The kids were running around. The granddad actually described the kids as feral. He said their behavior and the way they looked was feral, like crazy. He said that the kids looked like they actually hadn't been bathed or fed in a long time. Like they were really skinny and their hair was like matted up and dirty and everything. They said it was really sad and sickening to see. And so the granddad decided like, okay, I need to like save these kids. I need to get these kids out of this situation, right? So in 2002, the grandparents fought and won custody of the three kids, Alyssa, Emma, and their twin brothers, and they moved to St. Martin's, Missouri. So a little bit of background for Alyssa Bustamante. When she became a teenager, she really, all the trauma from her childhood started to like kick in, like really started to take full effect. And she resorted to taking pills, self-harm, and she actually tried to off herself. And when she tried to off herself at 13 years old, she was placed in a mental hospital, and they diagnosed her with depression and put her on 20 grams of Prozac, which is wild for her size and age. 20 grams is a lot, right? So she was diagnosed with this, and then they let her out after I think 3 months. But the meds were not really working. The hospitalization didn't work, which it usually doesn't. And you could really see like her mental state through her social medias. In her YouTube bio, she put hobbies include cutting and murdering people. And she would frequently post pictures of herself with a finger gun pointing to her head, or like her mouth bleeding, or she'd post pictures where you could actually see like the cuts on her wrist. And she actually, on her YouTube, she posted a video of herself and her two twin brothers at an electrical fence, like the type of fences that you touch and it'll electrocute you. And she like touched it and kept her hand on there and electrocuted herself, and then she forced her two brothers to do it as well. Like, she told them to do it and they wouldn't do it, obviously, and then she like forced them to do it. And she had a journal, and she would also frequently vent like on Twitter. And at age 15, it was actually noted that she had over 300 cuts all over her body. And not only that, but she also would bite and would burn herself. So that's crazy. But despite like her awful mental state, she was really good in school. Her teachers and her friends said that she maintained good grades. She was very smart, and she was good sort of in school. Now in St. Martin's, Missouri, it was actually like a really small town. I think the population was like a little over 1,000 or something. And so like everybody knew everybody. You know, I knew you, you knew me, I knew them, she knows him, you know, it was like that. And they had this specific neighbor. The mother was named Patty, and she had a daughter named Elizabeth Olton. And Elizabeth Olton was only 9 years old. And on Wednesday of October 21st in 2009, Elizabeth Olton had come home from school, and she was like reciting her lines for a play, and her mother was in the kitchen cooking dinner, and it was around 5 p.m. when Emma Bustamante had come and knocked on the door and asked if Elizabeth could come outside to play. Now, Patty at first said no, she couldn't, because dinner was going to be ready soon and it was going to be dark soon. So she said no, she can't, maybe tomorrow. But the girls begged and begged and begged and begged, and then finally the mom was like, okay, fine, but only for an hour. At 6 p.m. you have to be back for dinner. And Elizabeth Olton, being a 9-year-old girl, was terrified of the dark, so the mother didn't really believe that she would stay out after 6 anyways. And then also, she was not the type of kid to like disobey her parents, so she knew she wouldn't like, yeah. Unfortunately, though, this was the last time that Patty would see Elizabeth Olton alive. 6 p.m. rolls around, and Patty is like, where's Elizabeth? So she calls Karen, who is Alyssa's grandmother, and Karen is like, Elizabeth never came over here. Like, what are you talking about? And Patty's like, oh. So now Patty's like terrified, because where's her daughter, right? So she immediately calls the police, and they start the search as soon as they get there, which is kind of quickly, because like I said, it is a very small town. So as soon as they get there, the search starts. They're looking for her in the woods behind the house. And they get like a bunch of volunteers from their neighborhood and then the surrounding neighborhoods. You know, everybody's just searching for her. And on Thursday, October 22nd, the next day, Elizabeth's mother said that she had her phone on her. Elizabeth had her phone on her. So, you know, if they can use that for anything. So they're like, yeah. So they ping Elizabeth's phone, and it locates to a very like specific part in the woods. Since it's in such a specific spot, they can't just go straight to it. They still have to look for it, right? So they're like, okay, but this gives us like the general, what am I going to see on this side if I'm near, so something like that. But after a few hours, Elizabeth's phone actually dies and they can't ping her anymore. But they say, okay, this is cool, because this isn't cool, but we can work with this because we can get her phone records and see who she called last. And the last person that Elizabeth had called was actually Alyssa Bustamante, right? Now, the search continues, and there's still no trace of her literally anywhere. And so, since Emma was the last person to see Elizabeth alive, they bring in a child interrogator to interrogate her, because, she's 6, so they couldn't get a regular interrogator, so they had a child interrogator. And Emma's story starts off, she says, I went to Elizabeth's house, right, and I knocked on the door, I asked if she could play. She came out and we played for an hour until 6 p.m. and she went back home, and I went inside before I seen if she actually made it home or not. But then her story changed, and she said that Emma, had actually gotten stuck in a thorn bush and called out for help when Alyssa came out, helped her out of the thorn bush, and then they went inside and they assumed Elizabeth had went back home. So it was kind of weird. Since Emma Bustamante had mentioned her sister Alyssa, they were like, okay, so we should probably question her too. So they did. She was 15 at the time, so she didn't really need a child interrogator, but since she was a minor, she still needed like another like person present. So when they asked her, she said, I didn't really know it was that serious. I thought maybe she just got lost or something, something like that. But while they were like asking her questions, they found like different holes, like grave-shaped holes in the woods. And they asked Alyssa, like, do you want to go out and see them? They like brung Alyssa out. And Alyssa said, I actually know that, well, the specific hole that they found first, I actually know that hole because I dug it. And the interrogator's like, yeah. And Alyssa's like, yeah, I like find dead animals and I bury them out of respect. And now immediately, this is a red flag for police. They're like, okay. So what they do is they go and they search her room. Whew, oh my goodness. The stuff they found in this girl's room is crazy. But immediately as they enter the room, there's writings all over the walls. There was something on the wall called that stated it was written in blood, and then in all caps it was written in blood. And then there was like a drawing of a person with like, people were saying it was like slash marks, but to me it looked more like, that emo hairstyle that's like that. I think it was like that, but it had her sister's name written next to it. And then there was like letters and birthday cards from her father who was in prison. And they had other like drawings on there that actually looked like they were written in blood. And they also found muddy clothing and 2 muddy shovels. Weird. But out of all of that stuff, the weirdest thing that they had found was Alyssa's journal, her diary. One entry stated that she wanted to set a house on fire and lock her family inside. And then an entry a week before Elizabeth went missing stated, if I don't talk about it, I bottle it up, and when I explode, someone's gonna die. And then, the weirdest part, there was actually an entry on the night that Elizabeth went missing, but it was like scratched out with pen, like really, really harshly, like she was really going at it. The police and like evidence investigators obviously figured out, I think it was a black light or a blue light that they used, and they could see what was originally written. Now what she written, and I quote, I just effing killed someone. I strangled them, slit their throat, and stabbed them, and now they are dead. It was amazing. As soon as you get over the, oh my god, I can't do this feeling, it's pretty enjoyable. I'm kind of nervous and shaky though. Okay, I gotta go to church now, lol. Yeah, so immediately they're like, okay, we got her, boys. They're like, bring her in. So they bring her in for interrogation again, to try and get a verbal confession, because what was written in the journal was written confession. That was, yeah. The confession starts off like pretty nicely, like it was going smoothly. She's very calm, she seems like just any regular teenage girl. Like you really, if you weren't like a smart, intelligent in that field, you would not be able to tell that there was anything wrong with anything she was saying. So that's scary. But after about like an hour and a half of like interrogating her, they tell her, we read your journal. And the interrogator says, even if you scratch things out, we have a way to see what was written, and we know what you wrote.
Even if you write something down,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. Let's say you write it down in pencil, and then you take a pen and try real hard to scratch it out. That doesn't make it go away.
Okay.
It's still there.
And now, as soon as he said this, her demeanor completely changes. You can tell she's more reserved now. She seemed, in the interrogation, which I can link it in the comments, she seems more just, like, anxious now, and you can tell. because, like, when the body feels that it's in danger and it freezes up like a statue, her body just kept freezing. And when she wasn't frozen, she would, like, fidget a lot. So you could really tell, like, okay, she's like, dang, they caught me. And after just more questions, the interrogator says, did you cut her throat? And she says, yeah. She's like, yeah. And the grandmother who was sitting in the room just ran out screaming, oh my god, like, it's never gonna be okay. It's not gonna be like, my granddaughter just killed a 9-year-old. My granddaughter killed someone. My granddaughter, right? So, and once Alyssa sees, like, her grandmother running out and crying and everything, then she starts crying. She's, like, sobbing and bawling. And I don't know if she actually felt bad or if she was just like, okay, dang, I got caught. Like, I don't know if she was actually remorseful or if she just felt defeated. But either way, she started sobbing, and it was just really sickening to me to see her, like, sit there crying and sobbing as if she's the victim, as if she wasn't the one who caused all of this. That, like, really angered me. So she eventually, after lying some more for some reason, after she had confessed, she would, like, say dumb details like, oh, I burned the body, knowing she didn't burn. I don't know why she said that, but she kept saying just, like, small little lies for no reason. But finally, she told the truth. She said that she got her 6-year-old sister, Emma Bustamante, to lure Elizabeth outside. Now, Emma obviously didn't know she was doing that. She thought, like, oh, okay, like, she didn't know anything. She was 6. But she got her 6-year-old sister to lure Elizabeth outside into the woods, and then Alyssa said that she told Emma to go back inside, and she took Elizabeth and said that she had a surprise for her in the woods. And when she got to the woods, she led her to these 2 graves. They were about the same size, and immediately Elizabeth was like, this doesn't look like a surprise. And while Elizabeth's back is turned, Alyssa had a kitchen knife with her, but was holding it behind her back for most of the way. She pulled it out and she slit her throat from behind. No, she strangled her first, and then stabbed her in the chest 7 times, and then slit her throat, and then kicked her into the grave. And, she had shovels there, I guess, and she buried her. That was, wow. But after she admitted to everything, she led the police, like, right to where the burial spot was immediately. And before all of this happened, on October 22nd, they interviewed her boyfriend, Dustin, and he, after, like, I think in like an hour or 2 of interrogation, he stated that Alyssa had actually told him what she did and how it made her feel. Like, she told him everything, and the reason why he didn't tell immediately was because he was scared of her, which, I mean, he was the same age as her, 15. If I had just found out that, like, one of my friends or someone I was talking to, like, commit murder and was, like, expressing this to me in an excited way, I wouldn't tell either, because I'm like, okay, if I say something, she's coming after me next. So, yeah, he said he was scared, and, that's why he didn't say anything. And then they interrogated a few of her friends, and they stated that, she would frequently ask, like, if they ever, wanted to know what it felt like to kill someone. And one friend actually, like, gave a specific story saying, at one of Alyssa's birthday parties, a girl there had made her mad, and Alyssa pulled her friend to the side and said, do you ever wonder what it's like to kill someone? And her friend was just like, you don't want to kill this girl just because she made you mad. And Alyssa just played off his joke. She was like, no, I'm just kidding, like, obviously. But her friend said, like, that really put her off a little bit. It was just kind of weird. But she thought, it was just because, Alyssa was weird. She didn't think she would actually go out and murder someone. Now, even though she had committed that murder that night, she didn't dig those graves that night. She actually had dug the graves that she dug, the 2 graves that I mentioned, 5 days prior. So on Friday. Mind you, remember there was two graves, and they were about the same size, and Elizabeth Olsen was a 9-year-old little girl. And so when her trial began, they tried her as an adult, because if she was capable of committing such a horrible act, then, they thought she would be a danger to the other juveniles if she was sent to a juvenile detention center. So she was tried as an adult, and she was pleading not guilty, even though she already, admitted to everything. I don't know if she was pleading not guilty by reason of insanity or like what, but it was premeditated. She dug the graves 5 days prior, so it couldn't have been by reason of insanity. And she knew right from wrong. She was good in school, and she literally scratched it out of her notebook, meaning she knew exactly what she was doing. She knew that was bad. When she did it, she was like, dang, like, that was bad. Right? But anyways, they assumed like her next victim would have been Emma, since she had a second grave the same size as Elizabeth's grave. So they were like, okay, her next target would have been her 6-year-old sister, Emma Bustamante, which, I mean, I'm sure it would have been. But on January 12th of 2010, her trial was still going on, and Alyssa took a plea deal, saying that she would plead guilty of second-degree murder instead of first-degree. And on February 7th, the jury's verdict actually said yes, second-degree murder. They said, yeah, guilty for second-degree murder, and you would get life in prison with the possibility of parole in 2024. So next year, she might be able to get out of prison, which is the scariest thing in the world to me. But the mother of Elizabeth Olsen actually sued the mental institution that Alyssa was sent to, because, they're supposed to make sure a person is sane before they let them out. And they obviously didn't do a good job of that, right? So she sued them for that, and I think she won. So that was the story of Alyssa Bustamante. It started off a little sad in the beginning. It was like, she's going through all this stuff, like, but then, I know so many people going through almost the same thing who aren't going out and killing people, who aren't thinking about killing people. So, I have no respect for Alyssa Bustamante, and it's so sad to see like people on social media who idolize Alyssa and who are just waiting for her to get out, who make fan art for her. It's like, what is wrong with you? She killed somebody. Is that like not clicking? Like, there's no fan art for Elizabeth. Nobody's doing anything for Elizabeth, but you have all these people who are like fangirling over Alyssa, which doesn't make any sense to me. And people do that for like all serial killers. Ted Bundy, the Night Stalker, Jeffrey Dahmer, all these people are like idolizing them, and it's so gross to me. It's like, do better, please, because that's actually disgusting. They killed real, like, you do realize these are real people who have died at the hands of these, not even people, these monsters. And, you're fangirling over them? Like, you like them for that? You love them for that? Be for real. But yeah. Tell me what you think down in the comments, and if there's anything that you think I could improve on in my videos. I would also take any suggestions in my comments, or I leave my email in my description. So let me know. So yeah. Bye!